Are there aspects to your day that you feel as if you're just, checking the box? Do you ever strive to reach out of your comfort zone, become uncomfortable, and level up? Privileged to be your host, this is Jason Wabick. Now, let's uncheck the box. Another great day to everybody out there. Once again, my name is Jason Wabick, host of the Uncheck the Box podcast, where today we continue our journey in our quest of being the best versions of ourselves that we can absolutely, positively be. Listen, a happy Thanksgiving weekend to you. Lots to be thankful for and grateful for. Gratitude and thankfulness, two great things to be reflecting on this weekend. Yes, I use the keyword reflection. That is today's topic, is reflecting. You know, it's one of those things where, we ask ourselves, do we take the time to take a step back and reflect on the day that was, or the week that was, or possibly the month that was? And how important can reflection be? What kind of role should it play, and can it play in the growth of ourselves, and again, being the best versions of ourselves that we can be? And so, research has shown that reflection boosts productivity, yet few people make time for it. We're just too busy and we don't make it a priority. I've referenced this saying quite a bit, we're just too busy, and I'm not saying that we're not, but too busy, is a state of mind, is it not, right? We have a finite amount of time, and we find ourselves, especially with all the different rabbit holes that modern day takes us down, and with social media and these electronics, right? We're busy, but are we busy with the right activities, doing the right things? And sometimes, could we benefit in taking a step back, unplugging, and just reflecting? I was reading this article on the Harvard Business Review, and there was a study that demonstrated that employees who spent 15 minutes at the end of every day reflecting about lessons learned performed 23% better after 10 days than those who did not reflect. Another study of UK commuters found that people were happier, more productive, and less burned out if they used their drive time for reflection. So the common denominator is indeed reflection. The time of day in which we take that time out of our day to reflect is up to us. And again, this study showed commuting and drive time was a good time for reflection, which it is. Or maybe it's just some time at home in silence. I think the key ingredient is it could add to productivity. It could make us happier and have us feel less stressed and burned out. So why do people avoid it? Well, this article continued to give us a couple of reasons. The first one, so many of us don't understand the process. When they see why it is important, then they just simply don't know how to do it. We'll get into that in a little bit. So knowledge is power, and that's why we're here, myself included, wanting to get better. So understanding what the process is and how to do it and why to do it will be important. Some of us just don't like the process of reflection. It forces so many of us, to do things that we don't like to do. It forces us to slow down. It forces us, to look at our mindset of not knowing, and taps into our ability to be curious. And the unknown isn't really that comfortable, is it? We have to some degree, tolerate messiness and inefficiency, because we have to focus on those things, because things in life are messy. We just don't like to focus on it. It forces us to take some personal responsibility. some personal accountability about some of our actions and some of our things that we know we can get better in. And lastly, forces feelings of discomfort, vulnerability, defensiveness, and irritation. It again forces us to take a look inward. And a lot of times when we do that and we become vulnerable and we look at our raw emotion, things like being defensive and being irritated and uncomfortable are things that pop out of that process. Some of us don't like the results. When we take a peek inward, okay, we don't like to see ourselves in a state of weakness, okay? We become so defensive that we never learn anything because we fail to look at those and embrace some of those things we know could use some improvement. So again, we don't like some of the things that we see when we take some time to reflect on areas of opportunity. Sometimes we have bias towards action versus reflection. This article gave an analogy, which I do love analogies. I'm not a soccer player, but this one used a soccer goalie as an example. So I guess soccer goalies, okay, in this study that, let's see here, let me read here. A study of professional soccer goalies defending penalty kicks found that goalies who stay in the center of the goal instead of lunging left or right have a 33% chance of stopping that goal. And yet, these goalies only stay in the center 6% of the time of all penalty kicks. Interesting. They just feel better when they're doing something versus standing still. So the same as for us, apparently, makes sense, right? Reflection can feel a lot like staying in the center. And that is uncomfortable by nature for us. So again, some of us are more doers and like doing, and taking some time and reflecting almost forces us to stay in the center and take less action, right? Kind of difficult. I can see how that can play a role. Another reason, some of us, it's difficult to see good ROI, or the acronym stands for return on investment, in this case, time investment. We are taught to invest our time where we can see tangible ROI. And sometimes it is hard to see the immediate ROI from the time that is spent reflecting on the day that was. This is an important one, everybody. I know it's all about living in the moment and having the instant gratification. But this is something that I can see perhaps takes some time and patience. That the fruit that it bears is a little bit further down the road than maybe immediate. So, what are this week's discipline best practices when it comes to finding time for reflection? Why do we do this? Our mind is so tangled, everybody, okay, with information that it is important to process. And it's important that we untangle the knots that are our thoughts so we can bring clarity to our life. Everybody, isn't that true? Our thoughts are just so tangled. Think about, we go and unpack our Christmas lights for the first time in 11 months, right? And they're all tangled up in knots or extension cords in a bin. Those are just two examples for me. They're all knotted up. Well, those are our thoughts, everybody. They're not productive when they're all knotted up like that. So how can we untangle these things? Okay, number one, we have to schedule time regularly, just like anything else, okay? If it's a good habit that you want to put in place, then you must schedule it in order for it to become part of your routine. Okay, it's got to be a priority. And then you have to keep that commitment. And scheduling it will help you do so. If you're finding yourself trying to avoid it, then, ready for this? Reflect on that. Because reflection is probably what you need to do. right? After all, again, we are exposing ourselves in this process. We are becoming vulnerable. Everybody, another best practice. Write things down. Or if you're more of the computer type, typing it down. It's the same action. The action implies removing it from the brain, so this way you can lay it out, you can analyze it, and then store it for later. It is the action that makes it reflection. Again, there's a symbolism there of removing it from that tangled knot and placing it in a space that allows you to break things down. Everybody, start small. Set yourself up to make progress. If an hour seems too long, which to me it certainly does, I'm going to see if I can work up to that, actually. That's a goal of mine after doing a lot of research in some of these articles I was reading. But start with 10 minutes every day and go from there and see how 10 minutes can lead to maybe 15 or 20 or beyond. But where do we start with those 10 minutes? Well, here's another best practice. Ask yourself some very good questions. Some hard questions in some cases. When I teach sales consultants engaging potential clients, I teach them that don't underestimate the power of a good question. Because what that does is it opens the client up. It invites them to be more engaging. So the same, everybody, goes for us. We have to ask ourselves some very good, hard, true questions. I was reading some articles as well as watching a video from a new author that I just learned through this, preparing for this episode. His name is Dr. Robert Wicks. And he encouraged us to take a peek at what our highs and lows are for the day. He used an analogy. What was the geography of your day? And you can wrap those questions around allowing yourself to focus on both those highs and those lows. Then you start to get in touch with your cognition, your ways of thinking, perceiving, and understanding the situations that you were in for that day. He continues on. Then we see how we are thinking, how we're believing, and how we are perceiving things to be true. And after we process everything, we're going to find out that a lot of times our thoughts are giving ourselves a false reality of what actually is taking place. It's this reflection process that brings that to light, because we ourselves create false realities for us every single day. So this allows us to pull apart, dissect, break down, and give ourselves a true sense of what our actual reality is. These thoughts are often negative, and that's why it's a false reality, because there's a lot of negativity that creeps in. But by thinking it through, we get the clarity that we need to understand what our true belief is. It allows us to be in control of our own thoughts. And I love this quote he used. We are the master of our own ship versus someone else being the tiller. We now take control of our own thoughts in our own life, in our own day, and we can do something about it. Again, we are in control and not somebody else. So, what are some questions we can ask? Here are some examples, but not limited to this, everybody. Let your creativity run on you, and you come up with what's best for you. But things like, what have you been avoiding? Ponder that a little bit. Reflect on that. How are you helping others? How are you not helping others, right? Especially if every single day you are in charge or in a leadership position to where the success of others falls underneath your rooftop. How might you be contributing to your least enjoyable relationship at work? Boy, that's a good one, right? We all have great relationships, and we all have relationships that maybe need some work. Maybe some that we don't put a lot of time and effort into. So, how might you be contributing more to your least enjoyable relationship? That's a really good one. How could you have been more efficient today? What are you most grateful for? Again, everybody, taking time every day to express gratitude and thankfulness, it's a very, very, very powerful action. What are your regrets for that day? What can I do better next time, starting tomorrow? You see, everybody, the best behavior is to do the behavior. Be still, be quiet, and just think. Consider multiple perspectives. Look at the opposite of what you initially believe. How powerful is that? Look at the situation and then look at it from the opposite viewpoint. This allows us to bring that clarity and perspective into real life because we're looking at both sides. It doesn't allow us, or should I say, we don't allow ourselves to be pigeonholed. We look at everything objectively, and that's where we can get some benefit from this reflection. You don't have to always agree with your thoughts. Just think and examine. Everybody, again, we are untangling these cords of our mind. We are striving for perspective, striving for this clarity. And if we all take just a couple minutes every day to do this, I think we perhaps could find ourselves living a more fulfilling and enriching life. Well, that's it for today, everybody. I hope there were a good couple takeaways. I know there were from me. I know I've got some goals in this department that I'm going to put into place immediately. And listen, I hope you have a great rest of your day, an even better rest of your week, and we will absolutely see you next time. Take care, everybody.